What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, 2013 for me in boxing has been a very, very memorable year. I've enjoyed some great fights. And you have to even keep in mind that there are some fights that were supposed to take place that, for one reason or not, they didn't take place. Even with those fights omitted, it's still been a great year. Fights like Devin Alexander versus Kell Brook, I really wanted to see that fight, and it doesn't look like we're getting that. Lucian Bute and Jean Pascal, they're supposed to fight in December, I believe, but I haven't really heard much of it, so I'm not sure if that fight's still in the books. But either way, it was postponed, and we don't know for sure that we're going to get it. Same thing with David Haye and Tyson Fury, another fight I really wanted to see, and it got pushed back till February, supposedly. But the sport of boxing, all kinds of stuff happens. Other offers happen. People pull out. Another fight was Ricky Burns versus Miguel Vasquez. I really wanted to see that fight, but once again, there was a fight that didn't take place, that never came into fruition. And even with these fights removed, I still have had a hell of a year, and we're not even done. We still have Cotto. I'm not really looking forward to the Cotto fight, but he's a marquee name. I am anxious to see how he looks. I'm not a huge fan of that matchup, but at this point, he needs that. That's the type of fight he needs. He needs a confidence booster. You don't want to put him in with the Lions and with the Edislandi Laura or Canelo or somebody who definitely has skills and maybe size or whatever to pull the upset and then push him into retirement. So he's with the new trainer. He needs to test the waters, test that out. So they gave him a softer touch opponent, which happened. Same thing with Nonito Donaire. You just ended your win streak, or you just had your win streak ended by Guillermo Rigonel, and you need that softer touch, a person you already beat. So they put in Victor Chinian. And Victor Chinian, he's a solid fighter, but at the same time, I think he was a fighter who looked better in the lower weight divisions and also looked better a couple of years ago. We've seen him exploited in the Moreno fight, particularly. I thought Darchinian looked very sloppy, and Moreno is a fighter with no power. He doesn't have power, but he's very slippery, very crafty, and elusive, and it was too much for Darchinian. Now you put him in there with a bigger man and a bigger puncher who's fast and can be crafty too. I mean, I just don't see him beating Nonito for the rematch. But even with these fights gone, I still have had a hell of a year, which got me thinking about the future. So I'm already thinking about 2014. There's all types of certain matches, and it seems to me that a couple matches aren't matches that should be taking place, but may be taking place based on business decisions. And I want to talk about that. That's my latest poll. They're definitely talking about Floyd Mayweather versus Amir Khan. Um, I don't think Amir Khan has earned it. Point blank, I don't think he's earned it. A couple years ago, if they would have made a Mayweather fight, I would have no problems because a couple years ago, Amir Khan didn't have all these losses and he didn't look as suspect. He was still doing good things. Like if they'd made the Mayweather Khan after he stopped Zab Judah right around there, I'd be like, okay, that's cool because he earned it. He was a top dog at the time at 140 because Timothy Bradley moved up. They couldn't work out a deal. Bradley didn't want to lose out on the Pacquiao sweepstakes, so Bradley moved up to 147 and stopped Pacquiao's win streak or whatever. So again, I think a couple years ago when Amir Khan was really calling Mayweather out, that fight made more sense. But now with how Amir Khan's looked in his last four fights or whatever, I don't think he's really earned it. I don't think it's warranted. From a business perspective, I see why the fight would get made. And unfortunately, in boxing, that's how it goes. So that fight, and we also have Andre Ward versus Chavez Jr. I don't think Chavez Jr. has warranted, other than being born with a legacy name, an Andre Ward fight. Andre Ward, a fighter who's ranked in the top three, top two pound for pound list on a lot of respectable lists, who's coming off of rehab. He has to defeat Edwin Rodriguez, of course. But they're already talking about making a Chavez Jr. fight. Another fight where I don't feel fighter B has earned their spot to get that limelight fight, to get that pay-per-view type of fight. So my question to you is, who has earned it the least? Do you think Amir Khan, based on his recent performances, deserves a Mayweather, or does Chavez Jr. deserve an Andre Ward more than the other? So that's my latest poll. I want to know what you guys think. Either way, I don't think either fighter has earned. I think if those fights are made, it's strictly business based on a number standpoint. Um, as far as Mayweather, I think if anybody, he, I mean, it's a business transaction, and I think he does deserve it. I mean, he took his mandatory. Robert Guerrero made it look like easy work, and then he took on a bigger undefeated fighter in a higher weight class. So if he wants to take a fight that's solely based on money for this one fight, who, don't get me wrong, Khan poses problems. I just don't think he has a chin. If Khan had a chin, he would be vicious. He'd be very a very formidable opponent, but he doesn't, and he doesn't know how to respond well to being hurt, even with Virgil Hunter, because at the end of the day, there's only so much you can train somebody before they revert back to their natural innate ability and innate instinct. So I think Amir Khan is always going to have those particular flaws. He could try to mask it, but at the same time, the hunger for those things to want to slug it out when he's hurt, even though it's not sensible, it's still there. Whether he's trying to bury it, um, it's kind of like somebody with a temper. If someone has a real volatile temper, like a temper, and they have a like road rage or just a hard time controlling their temper, you can work on it. But what's gonna what happens when you really get in a situation where something really pisses you off? You could think about all the things you learned in your anger management class, and maybe you can suppress it a little bit, but I think ultimately, at the end of the day, given the right circumstance, those things will always resurface. Like, again, if you have a very violent temper, um, you could work on it, but most people don't have the willpower to completely suppress that and leave it in the past. And I think that's Amir Khan's biggest downfall, is I don't think when the going gets tough, he's gonna ever be able to fully do the right thing. Especially when he's at the elite level. He might be able to get away with it with the Julio Diaz, because who knows what Julio Diaz, his conditioning was at a catch weight. He was considered kind of at the downside of his career, so he didn't have enough to pull the trigger. But when you get in there with let's say even a Keith Thurman, and the going gets tough, someone who's not going to stop, someone who's going to keep pressuring you, probably in the smarter way, and they have the conditioning to keep with their attack. What is Amir Khan going to do? And I don't think we've seen that since the Danny Garcia fight, based on his opponents. Carlos Molina, a fighter with no punching power, and Julio Diaz. That's the only fighters we've seen under the Virgil Hunter. And I don't think those fighters are necessarily going to force Amir Khan to show that he's improved, if that makes any sense. But if he gets there with like a Keith Thurman, a Floyd Mayweather, a Danny Garcia, I honestly think those are the types of fighters that'll be able to exploit and prove that he hasn't changed overnight. Everything he was doing wrong before, like in the Maidana fight, it's still there. He's just trying to bury it below the surface. But we'll see. As far as Chavez Jr., I don't really got to spend much time talking about it. The Brian Vera fight. Some people want to argue that Chavez Jr. landed the harder punches, but given the circumstances, what the fuck did you expect? Brian Vera never fought at 173. He wasn't even supposed to fight at that weight. That was a contracted weight. So going in, I could have told you that Chavez Jr. was the harder puncher. So if he lands one or two per round, or 5 hard shots per round, that's cool. But at the same time, he didn't even knock Brian Vera down. So how could you score someone who's landing far fewer power shots, but not actually knocking his opponent down or out or anything like that, forcing him to take a knee, and they're severely getting out hustled, and because they landed the stronger shots, then that means they won the fight? I mean, I just don't understand it. I don't understand how some of you guys view boxing. Look at the Timothy Bradley versus Ruslan Provodnikov. Timothy Bradley's not a huge puncher. Ruslan Provodnikov, he clearly has more punching power than Timothy Bradley. But it's what Bradley did in those mid rounds where he was outboxing the shit, and Ruslan Provodnikov was letting the fight slip away by not doing what he did in rounds 1 and 2, not keeping up that same work rate, and he was allowing Timothy Bradley back into the fight by outworking him severely. And I don't see how you could turn a blind eye to those things and just say, oh, Ruslan landed the harder shots. So despite him not doing shit for most of the middle rounds, except for maybe round 6, I think he had Bradley hurt again. He still wins the fight. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's slow and steady wins the race. Like, you can't have. I mean, if that's the case, then Angulo should have beat Laura because it looked like his punches were more severe. But at the same time, he was kind of getting outworked, and that's actually even a worse example because it looked like Edislandes Laura's punches were affecting Angulo too. He just has a chin and was able to withstand it. So like I said, I don't understand how some of you guys view boxing. Like, from the angle of the power puncher just automatically wins. So no matter what he does, just being a bigger, stronger person, then he should win because his punches have the ability to move the other person more than the other person's power has that ability to affect them. That doesn't make sense, and to me, that doesn't win a fight. If that's the case, then you could just be a stronger person, throw 3 punches, and you should win because your punches, the 3 that you did land, probably hurt the opponent more, and that's stupid. It's definitely stupid when you have the little guy who is energetic and walking the bigger guy down, out hustling him, outworking him, out grinding him, throwing a higher volume, and bashing his face up. Chavez Jr.'s face looked worse than Brian Vera's, but because Brian Vera was eating punches too and didn't get knocked down, he gets the fight. I don't know. Like, I'm not. This annoying to be perfectly honest. To even try to have to explain this, but Chavez Jr., he lacks discipline from everything I could see, everything that he showed, and it's unfortunate because he comes from that fighting lineage and he's not doing justice to his father's name. His father put in over 100 pro fights, building his reputation, building his legacy, becoming that champion, and Chavez Jr. is kind of squandering it. So I don't think he's really warranted or deserved that that Andre Ward fight. And the thing that's funny is some of you guys are gonna argue, and a lot of you guys don't even argue. You just hit dislike on the video, like dislike. Like, first of all, I don't give a fuck about a dislike. Second of all, you never intelligently explain how I'm wrong or why you feel that I'm wrong or why you feel the opposite of what I say. You just think a dislike is going to stop anything, which is hilarious to me. But I don't see Amir Khan or Chavez Jr. deserving this fight. Chavez Jr. also said that he wants to fight again in December. He said he had a broken or a fractured hand against Brian Vera, which was the reason he was getting hit so much and didn't look as good in the fight or whatever. So unless he does something incredible in December that warrants an Andre Ward pay-per-view fight, I don't really see him deserving it. Like I said, unless he does something spectacular, like takes on one of the top guys at 168 in December, like a Carl Froch, or just somebody who's his size, or somebody who's looked good in recent fights. I just don't see him deserving an Andre Ward fight. Same thing with Amir Khan. Like, what has Amir Khan? If you disagree, what has Amir Khan fucking done to deserve a Mayweather fight in May? He's possibly skipping out of the Devin Alexander fight in December because he doesn't want to blow his shot at a Mayweather payday in a Mayweather fight. What has he done? Pulled his dick out and put it on the fucking Skype pictures? For those of you who don't know, yeah, Amir Khan was busted, some pictures leaked, and he's fucking bloody. He was wanking it on Skype or some shit. And there's pictures on the internet of his dick and him like wanking it. He was wanking it. So yeah, because he pulled his dick out and wanked it, doesn't warrant a Mayweather fight. That's just my opinion. But that's my personal opinion. So if either of those fights happen, I think it's all about monetary gain and it's all business. So who's more deserving, Amir Khan or Chavez Jr. of those big fights, those big pay-per-view type paydays? Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.